Good morning, Cougs. You are listening to Slice of Seattle on KUGR Cougar College Radio. It's a sports talk show. We're giving you updates, hot takes, and hopefully talk to some important people. I am joined in booth today with none other than Connor Simmons.
Good morning.
And Connor Seuferling.
What's up?
All right, boys, let's jump into Cougar sports real quick. Look, Cougar baseball, they're down in Reno. They're playing against the University of Nevada. First game of that, it's a 3-game series. Lost it 10-0 yesterday. That was a tough one because I was checking in, listening to the radio broadcast, and it feels like every single time I tuned in, it was just Nevada hitting a home run and just continuing to just extend their lead. And then I heard that we got the 10-run rule, I think about in the 8th inning or something like that, which is it's a conference opponent, so that's not what you want to do when you're starting off a series against them, especially after you swept SDSU and then you lost to Gonzaga. And then now you get 10 runs by Nevada. So, I mean, like, how do you go from, like, such a high then to such a horrible low? It's just a little frustrating if you're a Cougar baseball fan.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, they were a pretty good team, too. It wasn't like just some scrubs beat us. But I also think we are, even though, despite that loss, it was a really bad loss, we are going in the right direction because we went from 0-8, which is horrific, worse in school history. And now we're at the point where it's like we're kind of in that mid kind of phase, which is better than bad. Mm-hmm. And we want to be good, but it's also one step in the right direction because we were bad, and now we're in that mid. One more step is good. And if we just keep the projection we're kind of on, we're going to get to that good point relatively pretty soon, at least before the season ends. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, like, this has just been a season of inconsistency so far. The start to the conference schedule looked great, but, I mean, we can be honest, SDSU is not necessarily the most impressive Mountain West team by far.
No.
But, yeah, just inconsistency. I mean, this team gets one game where the offense pops off, gets a little bit of a punch. You saw that, like, in a game or two of the Iowa series. You saw that in the first game of the season against Arkansas. There was a chance to beat them. You saw that against UCLA. But it's consistently this inconsistency where we'll get, for every one game of good offense, 2 to 3 games of bad offense.
Yeah.
And then the pitching staff is just not good enough to uphold the other end. It's not like they're not like the Mariners where at least the pitching staff can be counted on. Nothing on this team can really be counted on. And so that's why we're, 6-7 games below 500. So, yeah, look for this bullpen to hopefully improve the rest of the season because right now, not sitting in a good spot.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned the hitting, too. I mean, Max Hartman had a 17-game hit streak going into that Gonzaga game. He went over, and I was like, that's a little bit frustrating, because you think about there were a couple guys on the squad who went over, and you look at the SDSU series, we win ball games when we get hot at the plate. And when we get hot at the plate, we put up double-digit run performances, not necessarily off of home runs. I mean, Logan Johnstone picked up a couple home runs, but we're not we're not a power hitting team. We're more of a small ball team. We get base hits, we get singles, maybe a hustle double, right? But then you saw Max Hartman's hitting streak get broken on Tuesday against Gonzaga. Then he went 0 again against Nevada yesterday. So, and I think he's right now, or he was second place in the Mountain West for batting average. So, I mean, if one of arguably your best hitter is not hitting the ball, you're going to feel it. And that's kind of what's been happening against Gonzaga and then yesterday against Nevada is that if our offense isn't hot, like you mentioned, our pitching staff is not good enough to be able to carry us through a ball game. Not like the Mariners, right? We're just not that good. But yeah, no. So Cougar baseball, they're going to finish up this series against Nevada today, tomorrow, and then they're going to come back home to play against San Jose State on April 4th, 5th, and 6th, I believe. KUGR will be doing the radio calls for that too, so if you want to listen to those games and you're not here on the Palouse to go watch it, tune into KUGR on YouTube. You can listen to those. But hey, let's talk about women's basketball. They made it to the WNIT third round.
Yep, Super 16.
And they got knocked out a couple days ago.
Yeah.
It was actually I found it very impressive that they made it to the third round and they didn't just let the season end because it did end, not because of the tournament stuff, but I thought it was really impressive what they did. I think that they did a good job just becoming a team and coming together at least for a couple more games with Tara Wallach. And obviously,
Absolutely.
She's officially done, and I hope she does bigger and better things. It was sad seeing it at her press conference and stuff like that. But I was really impressed by the girls' basketball team and their resilience this whole entire year, honestly, because they didn't have high expectations, and they kind of were just almost always above it. And I was always the girls' basketball team is doing really good. And that's the whole thought I had for the last about 4 months just watching them play, and very impressed by them and so proud of them.
Absolutely.
By all means, this was generally a season of success. Obviously, since Cam Etheridge has been here, it's been consistently, let's make it to the NCAA tournament because that is our new expectation. We are that level of a program. But, this was a transition year. You're moving to the WCC. You only have one senior. Charlize left, and you had several impact names leave, just by either graduating or transferring. And so, it put a lot on both Tara and then the rest of the team to just figure itself out, especially on a team that's got 10 international players. You're working through a lot of language barriers. You're working through a lot of figuring out personalities, chemistry, all of that. But, it worked out pretty solid. A semifinal finish in the WCC tournament, not bad by any means. Getting a bye to the second round of the WNIT is great. All of that. But, heck of a season for them. Shout out to the Cougs.
Absolutely. I mean, considering some of the sports failings we've had this year for Cougar sports, especially on the men's teams, like, football, looking like baseball here, and then basketball as well. I think the women's sports have been fairly consistent. Volleyball has been pretty good. Women's soccer has been pretty good. Women's basketball has been really fun to watch, as you mentioned. Diana Mendez transferred, unfortunately, so we're going to be losing her. Also, we have 2 more transfers on the men's team as well. Nate Calmese, and who else was the other transfer?
Marcus Wilson.
Yeah. And, Nate Calmese, this isn't a podcast to dog anybody, but he did have turnover problems. But he was a great quality start for us, and he was one of the consistent guys that didn't get injured and always showed up to play. And I just want to say thank you to him for that. But and then the Marcus Wilson, he got injured early on in the season, didn't play as much as he was a younger, I'm going to say freshman or redshirt freshman, something along that.
Something like that. Yeah. I know he's not an upperclassman.
Yeah, that's what I knew. And so with losing him, I don't know what we lost, to be fair and honestly, but I know Nate Calmese, there's going to be a little hole to fill with him there. And as of right now, the transfer portal just opened, but we have lost around 7 to 6 guys between seniors and then our 3 transfers now. So the boys basketball team needs to get recruitments relatively soon or some transfers relatively soon. I don't know how we're going to do it and what's happening behind the scenes right now because obviously we don't know, but something needs to happen soon. Yeah.
I mean, if you're a program that's not a Launchpad school or has a bit more of a basketball history, you can afford to lose a guy like Nate Calmese, right? This is a guy who isn't an amazing scorer, but has turnover problems, has consistency issues, isn't always willing to take a shot, maybe not the best personality fit. Again, that's a dog on Nate Calmese, but I wasn't always a big Calmese believer. But on a team that often lacked perimeter scoring, he looks like the guy we needed all the time. So it was great to have Nate Calmese. Yeah. But this is why he's going to a different program, a bigger program, probably somewhere he's going to get the ball a lot and he's going to lead an offense. And it's going to be hard to replace that. Parker Garrett's does not count as a Nate Calmese replacement. I'm sorry. I love you, Parker, but you are good at playmaking. You're good at, putting effort in on the floor, and that's about it right now. So where the offensive punch is going to come from next year is going to be a question. Marcus Wilson, that's just tough depth-wise. I don't know. I would have loved to see his development. Same with Watts to continue to his projection going forward, but things are looking a bit down right now.
And the thing with Nate Calmese, we can't say it wasn't expected because now this is his 4th team in 4 years. So that it's not surprising, but it's just one of those things, like you said, the locker room kind of situation. That's where you start to question that kind of mentality.
And arguably every year he upgraded on his program. So this is really not a surprise. Who's stopping him from going to a, more like a bottom tier, a Big Ten school or something like that? Because UW was Lamar was just, is small, and then moving to UW's, might have bigger programs than us in some things, but basketball, they generally have not had more success than us. So I would count the Cougs as an upgrade. So where he goes next, I don't know. We'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah, the men's team, they're playing in the new tournament that was made this year. What's the name of it?
Crown Basketball Tournament.
Yeah. So they're going to be playing in that. So we'll see how they do in that. But that'll do it for this week in Cougar sports. Let's move in. Let's talk about the Mariners. Hey, opening day, you get a first win of the season, 4-2 over the Athletics. Can't call them the Oakland Athletics.
Great game.
Yeah, great game.
Fun game to watch.
It was great. Let's get the positives out of the way. Logan Gilbert, A+ pitching
Oh my
performance.
God.
7 innings.
Always,
Yeah,
yeah.
7 innings. He's going to be putting together quality starts for us all year if he stays healthy, which so far he's been able to do. So, I mean, I don't want to jinx him, but stay healthy, have a good year, and keep putting up starts like that. 7 innings, only letting in 1 run. That is about what I would want from everyone in this pitching staff, if not a little bit more, which is perfect. But, I mean, also, yeah, Randy Rosarena ties up the game with a solo blast to left field, a little bat spike. That was just electric, super fun to watch. Jorge Polanco 2-run shot to center field to make it 4-2, and so we can end up winning that game. So those are the positives. Those are absolutely great things to watch. But I will admit it was a bit of an ugly win if you consider how many strikeouts we had. And there are a couple guys who were expected to have really good years this year, or expected to bounce back or continue their momentum, and they had really, I mean, I don't want to say awful days, but kind of subpar days. Julio struck out. I think he went 0 for. Cal Raleigh was able to draw a walk, and then he had like 3 strikeouts. Who else? Rowdy Tellez got the starting spot in the DH spot. Somehow he worked his way. I didn't think he was going to get the starting spot, but he ends up going 0 for, I think, with a bunch of strikeouts. Way too many strikeouts. We have more strikeouts right now as a team than we have hits as a team.
Yeah.
Which is, you can't win baseball games like that. And then that's why Game 2 yesterday, we lost 7-0 against the Athletics. I need to reiterate that. We were playing against the Athletics, who got sold out of Oakland because they were that bad. And we lose 7-0 to them. And Luis Urias, a former Mariner, hit a tank off us, which is awful. But
yeah, like that first game was a fun game to watch because you're excited. Baseball season's back. A great home opener as
Absolutely.
well. Like that was a fun game to watch. Randy came in and actually impressed me as he cranked one, and it had maybe the best bat flip of the year.
Yep. We just started.
It just started. So that was a fun game. But like you said, outside of the 3 or 4 guys in that first game, just excluding the second game, that first game, everybody else was a little down the drain. Like you have to flush that.
Yeah.
And then the second game was just what happened. I can't remember, honestly. That's what they have to do as well. They can't remember what happened. 7-0. Because you got to come out and win the series, I believe, tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a 4-game series, so we played the first 2.
Tomorrow. Yeah. So come out and win the series, or at least, get another game off, tie it, be 500 going in the next one.
Exactly.
But I'm also not going to judge too. There's 162 games.
100%.
This is 2 games. People need to get going. So unless it gets to the point where we're like 1-15 or like 2-13, something crazy like that, I'm not going to judge too hard because baseball is a sport where you have to get going. You could get cold early on and get hot later on, and there's so much to play. As of right now, I'm not liking what I see, but I also see potential. Yeah. So that's the hit or miss there.
Yeah, I was watching that first game with the boys, and one of the guys was just he was crashing out, man. I mean, like once the A's hit those 2 solo shots, the first one off Gilbert and the second one, who did we put in the bullpen the first time? It was Thornton. That's who we put in.
Trent Thornton. Yep.
Yeah, Trent Thornton. And he was like, "Why in the heck did we put in Trent Thornton?" First thing he does, first pitch, it's just a solo shot, second in a row for.
Soderstrom.
Soderstrom.
He had a night that night, yeah.
Yeah, that was rough. But then things turned themselves around. The offense started clicking, and that needed to happen at a certain point because the number of guys that the Mariners left on base in that first game, that should have been like a 7-run game, not a 4-run game for the Mariners. So it was good to see something actually click, but it sucked that it had to come through power hitting, not through just, good old-fashioned small ball getting the guys through, because that's what we're good at. That's what the Mariners are good at when it's at the best, right? Contact hitters, fast base path runners, they've got all that. And then obviously shout out to Logan Gilbert. We talked about him. This guy's great. I think he is the ace, the number 1 guy for the future, especially with Castillo's performance in the second game. It was solid, but not Logan Gilbert-esque. And it's great to know that we're gonna be okay without George Kirby, right? Yeah. Like, I love George Kirby. We need him back regardless, but the way the rotation looked in these first 2 games, and especially Gilbert, I'm feeling confident that we're gonna at least pull a game out of almost every series we play this year. And just by the fact that we'll have at least one stellar pitching performance to avoid sweeps. But yeah, that second game, man, I don't know. I'm super glad I didn't really tune into that one because it was a little rough. So
the worst part too was I tuned in at the fourth inning. Yeah, I tuned in the 4th inning. We're still 0-0, and I was like, we've almost had about 13 innings of like perfect pitching, just about minus like 2 solo home runs. I was like, we're doing really good, and then it just like almost like snap of a finger, everything just changed. Like
fell apart.
Oh, boom, 3 runs. Oh, then they get to 7, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then it's like we couldn't hit on the other side of the bat. So.
Yeah. Well, it was that second game was a bit of a pitching battle. I mean, Luis Castillo and I forget Sharp, I think was the name of their starting left-hander guy.
Was it Sears?
Maybe
was it JP Sears or was it Sharp?
It started with an S. It might have been Sharp. I'm not sure though, but I can't remember his name. That's the thing. Like I've never heard of this guy before. And it was a
shout out the A's rotation. There's like 2 guys that matter.
Yeah, they got
in the entire pitching staff.
Luis Servino first game was absolutely electric. He's a great pitcher. That's the thing. I dog on the Athletics a lot because they've been a bottom feeder team forever. But I will admit they've made some changes. Brent Rooker, Shea Langoliers. Clearly Luis Urias because he hit a home run.
Yeah, and apparently even Soderstrom too. Like heck yeah.
Like they're building up this team a little bit, getting some quality guys. That when you bring on an ace like Luis Servino to be in your bullpen, that's great for building a team, especially because they're going to be moving to Las Vegas.
And then they got Mason Miller as their closer, and that guy's a dog. Mm-hmm. Lucky we avoided him in that first game.
When you're moving to Las Vegas too, you got to be an exciting team.
Oh yeah.
And there's nothing better. It's like going back to that 2019 Nets team where it's just they're not a top team tier. They're barely making the playoffs, but they're a young, exciting team. Yeah, that's what you need if you're going to Vegas, especially.
Absolutely. So that's the thing. So I dog on the Athletics because they're the Athletics, but I do think that they're going to probably do better than maybe the Angels in the division. Do I think that they're a better team than the Mariners? No, I don't think so. I think we've got more talent. We've got a higher ceiling. I think that the Athletics are still not going to be a great team, but they're getting better consistently. And I think if you're the Mariners, I mean, they're going to start to creep up on you if we're not being, continuing to make this team better and better and better and better. Yeah. And going back to your point about strikeouts and leaving runners on base, those were the number 2 things. Those were the top 2 things. I'm mincing my words. Those were the top 2 things that prevented us from getting to the playoffs last year, right? Yeah. So that's when I start to see that in Game 2 after we didn't make that many changes in the offseason, but considering we're bringing on the team that ended last year pretty strong in September, I was thinking, okay, we should be able to fix some of these things. We're going to have fewer strikeouts with a healthier, Jorge Polanco. But hey, Jorge Polanco, 3 for 4. That he's obviously had. I project he's going to have a pretty breakout year just based off these first 2 games. He's doing pretty good because his knee's healthier. He's starting at third base, have a night. That's great to see. That's what I love to see, right? But I think that's. If we're already striking out as much as we are, leaving runners on base as much as we are, that's a sign to me that these issues that we were supposed to have fixed or that people were saying or we kind of felt like should be fixed by this time have not been fixed yet. And if that's the case, then it's just going to be another year of missing out on the playoffs. And I do have to admit, it's Game 2 of a 162-game season. It's like paying attention to spring training stats. Like we say, don't you take spring training stats with a grain of salt. Yet somehow we all are always talking about spring training stats all the time, constantly, right? It's kind of a catch-22. But, just looking at these first 2 games, it's a little disheartening. I do think it's a little weird we gave Ryan Bliss a start at second base. I think he went over. He drew 2 walks, but at the end of the day, he's not getting it done necessarily at the plate in terms of getting hits or knocking guys in. So there's a bunch of different guys who I feel like should be performing better, even if it's just the first 2 games. They should be playing. They're not playing to their talent level. Julio's not playing to his talent level. Cal Raleigh's not playing to his talent level. We just signed him on a 6-year extension. I think it was 6 years. Rowdy Tellez is looking at spring training, supposed to be a better hitter, and he's just striking out. Donovan Solano, who I don't have that high of expectations for Donovan Solano, but I think he had the golden sombrero. He struck out 3-4 times in yesterday's game. Mitch Garver was able to pick up a hit, I will admit. So that's where I think that Mitch Garver should be probably our starting DH. But at the end of the day, I'm just really frustrated with the hitting from the Mariners. Pitching, great. Luis Castillo, I give his pitching performance maybe an A-. He goes 5 innings. I maybe want some of these guys to consistently go 6, right? 7 is great. That's what Logan Gilbert did. 5 innings is okay. He only gave up a couple runs. That's okay from Luis Castillo. But I do agree with your point. I think Logan Gilbert is arguably the number 1 pitcher in our bullpen. I think he has surpassed Luis Castillo just in terms of his pitching ability.
Yeah, totally agree. You look at Jorge Polanco's performance so far, and it's like, oh, this looks great. And obviously you don't want to overreact early, but it's just like, even with that, the Mariners did nothing in the offseason. So what's stopping this team from just doing the same things it did last year that caused the problems, like you said? And so I don't know. Again, it's 2 games in. You can't say a lot, but if this is gonna be the path that this team takes this year as well, there's got to be significant changes at a certain point. Yeah. I don't care what it is. Cycle in Dylan Moore and a couple other guys at the second base spot. Try some new guys in DH. If Mitch Haniger's still on the waivers, claim him. Try something with him, right? Just anything, to try and give this team something of a boost. Because right now, I don't know. The offense, I think, is still definitely is on track to have issues this year, whereas the pitching staff is on track to be as good, if not better. And probably not better because it's hard to beat what we did last year, but probably about as good as last year. So I don't know. This Mariners team, interesting direction. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no. So Mariners are going to play tonight against the Athletics. I think at 6 p.m., which I think is where they're usually starting those games. Yeah, and then they'll finish it up on Sunday finish up the 4-game series. So hopefully the Mariners can at least tie the series, maybe get a series win out of it against again. Need I remind you, we're playing against the Athletics. So this is the perfect team to be playing to. It's also a division opponent. So I mean, just get a series win against these guys. Exactly. Yeah. Get over the hump. Start the season off right. Let's get a couple of wins. Let's end this series right. So, but hey, let's move in. Let's talk about the Seahawks. Not a ton of news. Again, it's in the off season for the Seahawks, and a lot of the major news happened in early March when we signed Sam Darnold.
Just when free agency started, yeah.
Free agency stuff, yeah. But the one thing I did want to talk about, if you've been paying attention to Fox Sports or anything like that, they did do a mock draft, and they said that weirdly they predicted that Ashton Genty was going to fall to the Seahawks, which take that with a grain of salt. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, I was talking to you about it, I think this is purely just clickbait, just trying to get attention because there's no reason why we would get Ashton Genty, and we already have 2 quality running backs. You'd be putting a guy who should be the number 1 starting running back on a team where there's conflict on who then would be the starting running back, which makes no sense to me.
Well, a lot of these mock drafts come out. They're trying to do this, I guess, on purpose. Because if you get clicks, you get views, you get more money. I understand why it makes sense, why they do it. Yeah. The pick doesn't make sense to me at all. Because first of all, we're the 18th pick, I believe, 17th. Yep,
you got it.
So first of all, off the bat, for him to even fall, let's just say he falls to 13, a team's going to trade in front of us because we're not going to be the team trading up to get Ashton Genty, first of all. Second of all, we don't need him at all. No. There's rumors Kenneth Walker could get traded because Zach Charbonnet, there's injuries with Kenneth. Zach Charbonnet could be that guy. We do have a backup. That's more realistic because that does make sense. Instead of Ashton Genty, who can come in for a team like Chicago or Dallas, be the number 1 back, and he could be, because a lot of these rookie hyped-up prospects, be top 5 running backs their first year because they're not banged up. The league doesn't know them yet. They don't have any really film on them yet. So I could see Ashton Genty being a top 5 running back, top 10 running back his very first year, depending on his workload. In Seattle, that's how you stunt his growth by making him the third, second. Let's just say he is the first back. He's still losing 20% of touches from 2 amazing backs behind him or in front of him, and that just doesn't make sense to me at all. And there's just so many bigger issues if you're Seattle. Absolutely. You don't waste a first-round pick. If you're going to do that, I know a team's going to trade up, but you can't do that. You can't waste a first-round pick that's such an important round pick, so much talent's on the board, and you just can't do a position where you can only give the person 1 ball at a time when you have three borderline top 25 dudes, with Zach Charbonnet, Ashton Genty, and Kenneth Walker. Don't get me wrong, it would be cool. Ashton Genty's a great, him in Seattle would bring in so much viewership, and it's kind of close to Boise, so it would be kind of cool. But I just see no possibility of it happening whatsoever.
Yeah, sometimes I hate reacting to some of these media mock drafts, man, because the only I take every mock draft with a grain of salt except for Mel Kiper and 2 other ESPN analysts or something like that, because again, the ability for some of these guys to scout just doesn't work well. And it's if Ashton Genty drops to the Seahawks, you take him 100% in my opinion. I don't care how good K9 is. I don't care how Zach Charbonnet is. They aren't top 5 running backs in the league. Ashton Genty can be a top 5 running back within 2 to 3 years of getting in the league. I don't think this is a Bijan Robinson situation. I think he's better than that. I think he's the best running back prospect we've seen since Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
This guy is built different, just to put it lightly. He's the man. He can run. He can power through. I mean, he kind of looks like Derrick Henry every day of the week. Yeah. So to me, you're not passing on him, and I don't really know what you do with your other backs. You figure out something. You worry about that later. But he's not dropping there. There's too many teams above 18, and I know it's kind of popular nowadays to actually not draft running backs that high.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think we wasted a first-round pick when we drafted Rashad Penny. Yeah. And then since then, drafting running backs anywhere pretty high just has historically not worked out too well. But with Genty, again, he's a generational prospect, and I think there's enough of these almost playoff teams but not quite playoff teams that are picking ahead of us in the order that will jump on him. So I don't see how we get Genty in any world. My guess is Seahawks are drafting defensive linemen or offensive linemen.
Oh, yeah. It has to be, too, because also let's just say we do draft a running back. It's not going to be Ashton because I don't think he falls. But this is such a deep running back class, one of probably the deepest running back class I think we'll have probably in the decade we've had recently in football. So if you can go get a good running back in the 4th, if you really want one, which I don't think we should even draft a running back in this whole entire draft because I think we have 3 top to bottom guys that like this guy gets injured, okay, we're okay with Zach. This guy gets injured, and McIntosh comes in or whatever. Yeah. So like I don't see a need for running back whatsoever unless maybe a trade does happen because draft night you never know honestly. But usually you'd see more rumors around that. So it's such a deep running back class. There's no point in taking. Unless he does fall, like you said, but I don't see it happening.
Don't put it past John Schneider though to do something. I think he's a great GM, but don't put it past him to not prioritize the needs of the team, especially the offensive line. He's not a big fan of drafting offensive linemen high, except for like Charles Cross. But again, that's an exception. Over the years, it's been skill positions, and shout out to him for hitting on some of them, but also not shout out to him for missing on some of them. Yeah. So. That's not the safest bet in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, so hopefully the Seahawks draft some O linemen in this draft. But I mean, hey, if again, like you mentioned, if Ashton Genty does fall to us, let's definitely take him. But hey, question for today. Let's look at so defense for the Seahawks. I'm not worried about. They've been consistently good. I think they're going to be good next. They were great last season. Yeah. I think they're going to be still going to be great this season too. But looking at this offense, this offense that has Darnold, Cooper Kupp, JSN, K9, Charbonnet, and if Walker gets injured, do we think that offense, and then maybe Noah Fant or I don't want to Jake Bobo maybe in the wide receiver. Do you think that offense paired with the great defense that we have, do you think that they're going to come in next season? Do you think that do we think they make playoffs, or do we think this is another rebuild team where we're just going to miss out on playoffs? What are our thoughts?
Well, the potential is there, but the skill positions is not where we lack, and obviously the defense getting better because they're just going to get older and experience comes along. But it comes down to 2 positions, basically. I'm going to exclude the whole O-line as one position.
Yep.
That's one. And then it comes down to Sam Darnold. Because we talked about it last week. It's either he's going to keep doing what he's doing with the Vikings, or, hit that like kind of Geno level, or he's going to go back to being a bust.
Yeah.
Which is... John Schneider did a great job with his contract, because if he is a bust, we can just release him. No ties after that. Hey, thank you. You got your money. See you later. But it comes down to Sam Darnold on the O-line because he struggled with no O-line play. I mean, struggled. He was like a borderline top 10 quarterback, and then those final 3 weeks in the playoffs hit, and it's the Rams, too, who's going to be playing twice a year now. That is just a nightmare waiting to happen because he went from a Vikings who didn't have an amazing O-line. They were kind of like that 12-13 range, so they were above average, to the Seahawks who had the 30th, 31st worst O-line in the league last year. And Geno Smith was kind of barely surviving, and he was low-key becoming a gunslinger at one point. So Sam Darnold, it's going to come down to him, and we have to get O-line to help Sam. We have to, because he hasn't had the experience where he's done good without a good O-line. Like the skill possessions, I'm completely fine with. Cooper Kupp just needs to stay healthy, hopefully. JSN's going to keep doing his thing. I think Jake Bobo, with an increased role, his production's going to increase. Noah Fant, I think he's one of the better tight ends, skill tight ends at least in the league, faster. So it comes down to O-line and Sam Darnold.
Absolutely.
And I think if he is a bust, we're going to probably have a 7-6-1 season if he is a bust. If he does do good, we could sneak into playoffs. Yeah. I don't think we will. We might win the division. It's going to be a close division, I think, regardless. But I don't think we're going to be like a super high seed. I don't think we'll be a top 3 seed. We'll be a wild card seed or that fourth seed where we won the division.
I was gonna say the same thing as you. It all depends on the quarterback position. Yeah. It's like what the heck happens there determines a lot about how this team goes. And I mean, it sounds cliche, but it is the most important position in football. And it's been a little bit of a shaky situation at the position for the past since we traded Russell Wilson, right? So 5 years, whatever it is. And so, yeah, it all depends on Darnold. And I think this is the ultimate wait and see team. I would love to project how this team's going to play out, but I almost want to wait until after training camp because I still think there's a lot of the gaps, the number 3s, the number 4s, the number 5s at different positions. I still want to wait and see what happens, what figures out, because I have a feeling somewhere on this roster there's going to be a little bit of a breakout guy somewhere. I don't think I don't trust the existing projected starting lineup we have on either side of the ball to be the long term for the rest of the season starting lineup on either side of the ball. And then to go to your point about the defense, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not quite as high on the defense as some people might be. I think we're young. The team is rangy, versatile, got corners with good length. We've got guys who have energy. The D-lines, I think, is going to be a little bit better than it was last year. The linebacker core still working itself out. Mike McDonald's a great defensive coach.
Absolutely.
I think there's definitely a possibility we improve, but are we still more than an average defense? I don't know. The pass defense wasn't great all of last year. Even the run defense was, it was solid, but I don't know, man. I think a lot of this is going to hinge more on Darnold and the offense coming together itself if this team's going to make a playoff run.
It's a big question mark. The Seahawks as a whole is a big question mark.
Yeah.
Because I agree with what you said and everything. I just think, on the defensive standpoint, just the young guys, you hope they get better. There is times where they just don't. Like, straight up, they just don't get better. But it's just a huge question mark. We could be really good, but it could also be really bad. This is like almost a situation where it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I definitely I agree with you. The defense, it's not necessarily up to like Legion of Boom type status. I don't think, honestly, if you're asking me, I don't think we'll ever get a defense like Legion of Boom ever again.
There hasn't been a defense like Legion of Boom ever in the NFL.
No.
So, like, obviously, because it's such a different, diverse group, too. Like, you go back to the Iron Curtain Steelers back in, like, the 80s. You have the old Chicago Bears.
Yep.
There's amazing defenses built around. None of them were like the Legion of Boom. And also, it's a top 5 defense of all time.
Yeah.
You just don't recreate those. If you did, we'd probably be 10 times Super Bowl champions. So.
Absolutely, yeah. So, obviously, our defense isn't going to be that good. I do think what you mentioned, like Mike McDonald, defense-heavy coach. I think next year he's going to work with this team. I think the defense is going to continue to get better. But then also, with the offense, look, Cooper Kupp. You're gonna get what you're expecting out of Cooper Kupp. Hopefully this year, that's what I'm expecting. JSN, you're gonna get a pretty good year out of JSN. Is what I'm hoping, considering what he did last year. I think he is gonna keep that momentum rolling into the next year. And if he doesn't get hurt, if he stays healthy, which he was able to last year, so hopefully he stays healthy. You get what you're expecting out of JSN. K9, I'm expecting him to probably get injured at some point next year, or maybe a couple times. But then that's why you have Charbonnet. Charbonnet's a great backup. So that's
Ashton Genty.
Or Ashton Genty if we draft him. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like you can expect K9 to maybe get hurt, have an injury, be out for a game or so, or something like that. But then that's why you have Charbonnet there to help come in and back it up. And I definitely agree with you. All those positions, running back, the receivers, tight end, I think that those are all going to be consistent, and those are not going to be what is going to make or break of this being a playoff team. You're 100% right. It's going to be the quarterback. I think if Sam Darnold is able to click with this team right off the bat, is able to have good chemistry, is able to not get sacked consistently because of the O-line, then I say this team makes playoffs. If he starts to struggle because of the pressure in the pocket, if the O-line just keeps collapsing on him and he can't get any balls off or anything like that, we're not going to make playoffs this year. Like that, I 100% agree with that take. I also want to ask you guys about the fact that Russell Wilson to the New York Giants. So he's going to be that quarterback room's going to be him. Jameis Winston, and who's the third?
Tommy DeVito.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's 3 quarterbacks in a room that it feels like a little like you have not too much talent in that room, but too many quarterbacks.
Uniqueness. It's like well, the Giants. I kind of like what they're doing because, like, I don't think they should have drafted. I don't think they should draft Shedeur Sanders. I think they now go because my mock draft totally changes. I have them taking probably Travis Hunter now, or like if Abdul Carter's still there. But Travis Hunter is going to be a talent pick there, so you don't have to waste a pick on a quarterback. And if these quarterbacks do bad, because they're all on 1-year contracts besides Jameis Winston's 2-year $10 million, which doesn't really hurt you. And Tommy DeVito's still on a rookie contract. Russell Wilson's only the 1 year. So if they do bad, next year's Arch Manning. Yeah. So next year that quarterback class could be even better, and depending on where you are and how everything's doing. But if Russell Wilson does good, then you found him for 2 years, a couple years. Malik Neighbors only going to get better. And Travis Hunter, if you draft them now, You don't have to waste a pick on Shedeur Sanders and hope he's good. You have Travis Hunter who's a generational talent, Heisman winner, plays both sides of the ball. I think that's going to be insane. I think the Giants are at least making good decisions. Yeah. I don't know if they're going in the right direction because time will only tell. But I think they are, in my opinion, making good decisions.
I am super, super excited for this quarterback room for the wrong reasons. There is you gotta be honest. You gotta feel really bad for Giants fans. Yeah. The fact that the direction of your team right now is stringent on a average aging quarterback, Jameis frickin' Winston, and then Tommy DeVito. Like it's just I don't know. It's a fun room, right? Yeah. You've got Giants country. I don't know. Yeah. You've got Jameis Winston who's gonna eat that W every single day and be an absolute NFL films guy. And then you got Tommy DeVito, just the best. He's got the best. Guy. He's mafia guy. He's got the best agent in football. Like, I don't know, but the direction of this team, it's not the worst. It's a good bridge gap thing. Exactly. You're not overpaying either of those quarterbacks anything. They're being paid, either backup or top end backup money. It's whatever. But making those signings, like now your quarterback room has 3 guys who have all started football games in the past, but none of them started well in those football games, within the past couple of years, right? Yeah. Obviously Russ was great back in the day. And so you're putting a cap on your ability to draft a quarterback high. And I totally agree. I think Travis Hunter is easily the best prospect in this class. And the only reason that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders will go ahead of him is just because quarterback needy teams. And if you're the Giants sitting at the 2nd spot, it's like this team has not had a quarterback direction in the longest time because Daniel Jones to me doesn't even count. And that was several years ago now that he was drafted. And so if you don't sign those guys, to me, you actually commit to a direction and you force yourself to draft one of Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, whoever comes to you. But now that they've signed these quarterbacks, they've backed themselves into a hole again, and now they're not going to draft a quarterback, most likely. Yeah. And so, I mean, obviously, I think you can wait and see, but for Giants fans specifically, this is tough. Yeah. Another year of a lack of direction. Now, if they get Travis Hunter, great. That's awesome. This team's potential is off, at least from the offensive skill position perspective, is off the charts. But again, if I'm the Giants right now, like quarterback, regardless of Travis Hunter being a generational talent, quarterback should have been the priority.
Yeah. No, I can also agree with that. But I also think last year, Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, even if they just got one of them, is way better than Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock. So in that kind of standpoint, I think Giant fans are a little more excited. I also think they are better overall now because the Shedeur Sanders Cam Ward thing, they are question marks. Cam Ward's a less question mark than Shedeur Sanders, in which they probably would have got Shedeur Sanders if there's no Russell and no Jameis. So that's where it's like, do the Giants take her? Because it'd be everything if Shedeur Sanders came in and sucked. Then they're right back from square one. At least with this, they can get another generational skill position talent or Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And then next year, if quarterbacks suck, then you go out and get your guy. Then you go out and get, hopefully, a not as big of a question mark if Shedeur Sanders, like an Arch Manning or some other guys from other schools, is I don't even know the college landscape anymore right now. But Russell Wilson, I think, is better than Drew Lock.
I think it's really a battle of just perspectives or philosophies or ways you want to run your team. Because honestly, I don't even know if the Giants know really what the right direction is. Because again, I totally get where you're coming from, and I think there is definitely validity to it. And that's probably how I'd run the team as well. Yeah. I think my biggest thing is this feels like a Pistons situation where it's like you've been bad for so long. It's like you just have to sign guys to make yourself feel somewhat good. Yeah. Or you need to do something, and so I guess signing those guys, it's good. They're gonna have a floor that's better than it was last year. But again, like when you've been bad for so long, it's to me like you owe your fans a commitment to something, and committing to a quarterback to me would have been the ultimate sign that yes, we care about this franchise. But again, if Hunter or Carter is probably the better long-term option, even if quarterback's the most important position in football, because you can wait and see. Yeah. So.
Well, I also agree with that last part where it's like you've been bad for so long, you can take a risk on Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, I guess, and be bad for one more year. That's the perspective of I'm a Giants fan, especially because last year was just a pretty tragic year outside of Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah.
So,
being so bad for so long that you just need to go sign guys is what I've been saying about the Mariners for a long time. But that's going to do it for Seahawks in the NFL. Let's move into and talk about the Seattle Kraken. Look, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I feel like the past couple episodes have come on here and mentioned the fact that playoffs is not in the picture for the Kraken right now. That is
close.
It's out of the question. We dug ourselves a hole. Kind of, I'd say we started digging the hole kind of about halfway through the season, I reckon, and just through that whole middle half of the season, just completely killed any chance we had. The start of the season, it was feeling like, hey, there's
the mid kind of level,
like maybe if we start to piece things together, we sneak into a wild card spot. But now that's off the table. It's looking like this is a bit of a rebuild year. We trade a couple of guys. But what I say, hey, you got Jordan Eberle back healthy. Vince Dunn got back healthy. Montour and Stevenson look like they're starting to vibe a little bit with this team and starting to build up that chemistry that you like to see on some of these lines. We brought up Yanni Newman, who's been absolutely electric on the power play. We brought on Capo Caco. We brought on Mikey Asamont. So, look, it's weird because it feels like we've made a lot of changes to this team that had we made them midway through the season or at the start of the season, we would not be in the situation we're at right now. We would probably be thinking about a wild card spot, right? So we're looking like a wild card playoff type team, but at a moment when doesn't help us anymore. Like we're not going to be making playoffs anymore. But I have a great feeling that with the team that we've built right now, if we can get Jordan Eberle stay healthy all of next year and all the guys that we brought on to stay healthy, this is a team that right now you plop it into the start of the 2025-2026 season. Maybe if everything starts clicking, we might get that wild card spot. That's my opinion. But
yeah, and then plus we're going to get a hopefully young superstar in the draft because it's looking like we're going to have a top 5 pick.
Yep.
But I remember the conversation we had probably around 4 or 5 months ago where we were kind of in that mid-level like you talked about, Smith. But we were at that mid-level where we were beating bad teams but not beating good teams.
Exactly.
And I remember we had the exact conversation. All three of us were like, it's either we're going to get to the point where we have to start beating good teams or we're going to start losing to the bad teams. And we started losing to the bad teams, and it just went completely downhill. And what I want to see in the last, 18, 15 games left of the season is more consistency. Because our last game versus the Oilers completely random. No, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Stuart Skinner, that's what we should do. Yeah. Completely run them. But then you go back 4 days earlier where we lost to the exact same team. Without Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Stuart Skinner. Yeah. That's what how does that happen? There's no way the Oilers, even I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan, there's no way a healthy Kraken team with the top 5 goalie in Joey Decord, I don't care if you don't have crazy special playmakers, but the team we have right now should be losing to the Oilers without 2 top 5 players and their best goaltender.
Yeah, we
need to find consistency, at least towards the end of the year, kind of what the Mariners did, even though they didn't make the playoffs and they were still fighting, so that maybe helped out. But just find that consistency, build something for next year.
Yeah.
With that Mariners thing, it's like, this team could really go up, and have a trajectory that finishes the season strong, and I think they're on pace to be doing that. But again, if you can't have this strong finish and then do what the Mariners did, following that or have looked like they're gonna do, and not build off that momentum. So I think finishing the season strong is gonna be really important. And actually capitalizing on opportunities to take advantage of opponents who have, disadvantages or are injured or weaker opponents, to just build something up, but they're going to have to commit to doing that next year. So I think a lot of this is going to ride on what happens in the offseason versus even what happens at the end of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I look at that 6-1 win over the Oilers, and basically I'm like, all right, so you're telling me we're cup contenders is what you're saying. But no, I definitely think, looking at the offseason, we've put ourselves in a really good spot with the trades that we make. Honestly, I felt like we won a lot of those trades. I think a lot of people would look at those and be like, you gave up Brandon Tanev and Oliver Bjorkstrand, Yanni Gourde for draft picks and one guy.
I think it's perfect, honestly.
First-round draft picks are perfect because they put us in two really good situations. Either we can go into the offseason, trade those first-round picks for some really talented guys. I say we trade for some bigger guys who can lay some hits and can be kind of enforcers on our team. Maybe you also get a skill type guy, right? Maybe we snag Connor McDavid. That's not going to happen. But maybe like Macklin Celebrini or like Connor Bedard or someone like that. But that's even a stretch. But you can go trade for someone like that, right? Or you draft someone in the first round like you're saying, right?
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Because hockey, it's really hard for a hockey because there's very rarely Mikko Rantanen situations where you can't, because you have such a good team, you can't afford a top 10 player.
Yeah.
That, you know how good of a team you have to be, like the Avalanche? But if you build kind of like, because we're not as bad, we have a really average mid kind of team.
Yeah.
Some guys are above average, some guys are below average. So we're not like the San Jose Sharks or the Blackhawks where they just have Macklin Celebrini, some other young guys around him, Connor Bedard, and kind of nobody around him.
Yep.
But if we can draft a young guy, put him in and build around him, which we already have young kind of or veteran guys that can protect him, the young guys that can grow with him, that's what I think needs to happen.
Yeah.
I think that's how we build. Because trading for a superstar is one thing where they can just come in and be the man, because that could work out. Like, or they just become the face of the franchise immediately. But I would almost rather enjoy us drafting a guy and seeing him grow with the team.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to go in hockey, especially. But I think we go through the draft. Well, I think they are going to go through the draft because now we have 3 first-round draft picks in the next couple of years. So.
Yeah, the team doesn't have the resources or the market to be a team that really makes a really big move. Maybe down the line, but I think the motivation of those trades was to just, get as many young guys in the system as possible. And I think that's the right direction for the team, right? Like like you were saying, like people might overreact to the trade when you don't get, 1-for-1, or you don't get a player for, a couple players, whatever it is. But, this team does need physical guys and guys who have a little bit more versatility, who can provide some punch in the power play, stuff like that. But it's not really about getting the bodies right now. The direction of this team is more about getting guys who have potential and who could raise the ceiling of this team. The floor of this team is whatever, right? Like it's not terrible, but it's not great either.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's okay to be at that point. But what really needs to happen is boost the ceiling of this team, because right now the ceiling of this team is not even above a wild card spot.
No.
And so
Exactly. I mean, to the idea of us kind of being that mid team, like that's one of the things that has, for the past couple of years, has frustrated me about the Kraken is that, like the Sharks and the Ducks and the Blackhawks, god-awful teams. They are horrible. They rarely win games, right?
Yeah.
But you know who Connor Bedard is. You know who Macklin Celebrini is. You know who Zegras is, right? These are superstars, and they make watching those teams fun. Even when they're losing, it's still fun to watch those guys on the ice. Yeah. Who do we have? Matty Beniers, which is like, I will say, he's bounced back a little bit this year, and he's done a little bit better. Shane Wright's bounced back a little bit, but these are like first-round guys who were supposed to be like that Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, Trevor Zegras type guys, and they just didn't really pan out. And so we're a team that we're a team that's kind of at that level where we're almost that bad. We're kind of tiptoeing that line, but we also don't have a superstar like that. We're like, so I'm sure if you go to any other NHL fan and say like, hey, name someone on the Kraken, they'll be like, they won't know. But they're like, name someone on the Blackhawks. Oh, Connor Bedard. They'll know who it is. Yeah, and that's one of the problems that we have. I mean, I'm hoping that Yanni Newman kind of turns out to be that kind of guy where people start to pay attention.
We need a face.
Yeah.
We need a face. Like when you think of like these teams, you think of somebody, and we need that for the Kraken. Identity.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
We flow through this guy. This guy is the reason we're good, and we build around him. That's what we need right now. And we've been saying it all year, but
pretty much. Yeah, but no, that's basically all we got for the Kraken so far. They're playing tonight against the Dallas Stars. The Stars have been pretty good all year. They knocked us out of the playoffs when we made it back in 2022. I'm still holding on to that year. That was the little time of happiness I had before we turned, into a horrible team. But we're playing against the Dallas Stars tonight, and then we go and play against them again on Monday, I think. So we get like a day rest and play against them again. So I'm a little worried it's going to be back-to-back losses against the Stars, who are a really good team.
Which, honestly, at this point helps us.
Yeah.
We want a higher draft pick, or at least better odds of one.
Exactly. Yeah. But so that's going to do it for the Kraken. Before we head out today, let's talk about March Madness. What round are we in? Right? Did we just make it to the Final Four?
The
Elite Eight.
Elite Eight.
We just got to the Elite Eight. We talked about it last week a little bit. Not a lot of upsets, so people were like, it's boring, it's boring. It's getting to the point where it's like good teams are playing good teams. Yep. Really good teams are playing really good teams. And now it's starting to become intense. So that's what I love to see. I like good teams. Like that Houston-Purdue game was awesome. Just great coaching between each other, play calls, everything. The Texas Tech game went to overtime. All the number 1 seeds are still in there. So the projections of the number 1 seeds all being in the Final Four wasn't crazy at all. And that'd be really cool to see because you technically have the best 4 teams versus each other.
Yeah.
And Duke's Cooper Flagg finally had his breakout game. Caleb Love had a historic college career. He sadly did everything he could, but Duke's just the powerhouse team right now. And Florida's I think it's setting up for a great Elite Eight, Final Four, championship run because it's just purely good teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, regardless of upsets or lack of upsets, March Madness is always going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way it doesn't finish well. And so unless the championship game is like a 30-point blowout, but I kind of doubt it. So, yeah, to your point of all these good teams making it like this, I made a little bit of the mistake of trying to pick too many upsets when I made my bracket, but like I was saying before this tournament, like this is one of the best sets of 1 seeds we've had in a while. They're all just so formidable, and we've seen that Houston's played great. Florida, after a little bit of a shaky game against UConn, they took care of business against Maryland, and I think they really have a shot to show Texas Tech we are the stuff. And then, obviously, Auburn's good. Michigan State's good. Who am I missing? Obviously, Duke. Like, there's so many good teams in this Elite Eight that it's legitimately obviously the Elite Eight is supposed to represent the best 8 teams in college basketball, but I think this year out of any year, this is especially the 8 best teams in college basketball. And so it's going to be really interesting to see, but I have Duke going all the way, and with Cooper Flagg's performance the other day, I'm feeling pretty good about that pick.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So Auburn's still in and Alabama's still in. Alabama beat BYU.
They also just broke the record for most threes in a game.
Yeah.
Mark Sears in that Alabama team is looking special right now.
Yeah.
This Duke versus Alabama game could be game.
Yeah.
This is a championship level game. Mm-hmm. This could be game of the tournament.
Yeah. So you have Duke obviously beaten. Do you have Duke beating Alabama?
I do because I have Duke going to the Final Four, but I didn't think Alabama was going to look like this when they did play Duke. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take
totally
this,
agree.
You can't take this into question when you're doing this because there's a chance Alabama got upset in the first round. But I did not think the way Alabama was playing, where they're just breaking 3-point records.
Yeah.
And Mark Sears is dropping 30 points, looking like the next Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
And Duke's looking hot. Cooper Flagg had his breakout game where he dropped 37 and 8 or something, almost a triple double. This is an amazing game. Oh man.
Yeah, I'm very happy that I got at least BYU to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
But I had them in the Elite Eight, beating Bama, and it's largely because I was just so worried about. Even though this Bama offense is historically good, I was so worried about just one game, something going wrong, that the normal 90, which is insane, the normal 90 that they expect might turn into like a 75, and whoever they're playing will outscore them. And BYU is also really strong offense, and so that's why I kind of was leaning towards that upset. But Bama showed no signs of slowing down. They just keep going. Marcus Sears is probably the best perimeter player in the entire country, up there with Clayton and Caleb Love and a couple other guys. And with the way that Duke looked against Arizona, obviously they played great. Their offense was amazing, but they also gave up 93 points to the Wildcats, man. This is going to be – I'm expecting this to be a high-scoring game, and I think it could go either way. And it's crazy to say it, but, Bama might be is on pace to be the national champion this year.
And it truly isn't crazy to say because the thing about it, too, is that they're probably the best-looking 1 seed right now is Duke, too. They're probably the best-looking 1 seed, and they're going against Alabama, who's looking like easily the best 2 seed. Mm-hmm. It's actually – it's going to be – you can call it an upset, but it's a 1 versus 2 seed. But It's gonna be a game to watch. I think we'll probably all get together and watch that game because that's gonna be an amazing.
Heck
one.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, hey, we should have another episode before March Madness wraps up. We should be doing one next week and then the week after that. So we'll keep you guys up to date about our brackets and everything. Obviously, I still have University of Auburn going against Alabama. I got Alabama winning.
I have Florida versus Duke, and I have Florida winning, so I'm still alive.
And I'm just the complete opposite. Duke over Florida in the national championship.
Yeah. Like so, I need Bama to beat Duke.
This
and
is a huge one.
I need that. I'm hinging on that to make my bracket. Obviously, my bracket got busted, but at least if I can have my final, if I predict the national champion, I'll actually be pretty. That's as much as I can possibly ask for.
It's perfect in my eyes.
Exactly, yeah. But no, that'll do it for us talking about March Madness, and that'll do it for this episode today. Thank you, Connor Simmons. Thank you, Connor Seuferling, for being up in the booth with me today.
No, of course,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so that's going to do it for this episode of Slice of Seattle. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. Remember, it is a great day to have a great day, and go Cougs.